Okay.
And we are live. So first of all, hello everyone. I am Misha Green, DC editor, but y'all already know that. We're really here to talk to Jamie Wooten, who's gonna really break down a lot of different things. But you all know we've been talking a lot about Black wealth in April. It's Financial Literacy Month. Just at noon on Chicken Box, we talked about what is financial literacy in the Black community. Now, as we approach our special edition of the We're Still Here, focusing on Black wealth that comes out April 17th, we have an expert who's going to talk about how different ways of giving back, uh, collecting money, and keeping money within the Black community. And so, without further ado, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm great, Misha. Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. I know Thursdays are always busy for people, or Friday Eve tend to be very busy for people. So we really appreciate you taking this time. You guys know the drill. I'm going to go ahead and share this stream. And you guys are please do so as well. Y'all know what I say, sharing is caring. And of course, this conversation is really important. And it'll be here as long as afro.com, Facebook, and YouTube exist. So people will be able to benefit from this information for a very long time. So go ahead and share this information. Um, so I guess let's just dive right on in, which is tell us a little bit about your story. You are an entrepreneur, it seems at heart, but how did you get to founding three organizations? uh,
Yeah.
and tell us about all that you do.
Yeah, I think with the most recent project collectively, I've been thinking a lot about my dad. So my dad grew up here in Baltimore, but had to drop out at eighth grade because he was the oldest and he had to go to work. But he went on to open up five dry cleaners and several nightclubs in the city. And so that entrepreneurial piece was definitely always a part of our family. I also had a sister who went to George Washington Law School, but came back to West Baltimore and opened two pizza delivery stores. So she's 10 years older than me. So I've always had that sort of example of entrepreneurs within the family. As a young professional, I had the opportunity to work for an organization called the Collective Banking Group, and now called the Collective Empowerment Group out in Prince George's County. And this is an organization of churches that faith-based organization working with over 200 churches and faith-based economic development. And so had the chance, again, a product of the Black church, I had the chance to be a part of an organization that was committed to pooling the assets and resources of the Black church. And so that sort of led me on that trajectory. While I was there, I launched Kinetics, my first business as an information ministry to sort of stand in the gap between the church, the academy, and community. And have gone around the globe really doing sort of at the intersection of faith and movement building, working on issue education, working with social activist organizations, sort of getting the word out. And again, most recently launching collectively to mobilize resources here in Baltimore.
Awesome. That is, I think, such a really good testament to how your parents and the people around you and mentors can really shape who you become in the direction you go in. And I guess that takes me to my next question, which is you said your father had an eighth grade education and yet uh, became a major entrepreneur within Baltimore. And we found in a lot of the research that we're doing for this We're Still Here special edition that Black wealth is not always about money,
Hmm.
but opportunity, the people you're around, assets, of course,
Mhm.
and bringing money into your community, but as well as resilience. It sounds like all of that is what made you the man that you've become today. Can you tell us a little bit about your definition of Black wealth and how you shape it um, based off of your history and upbringing?
Yeah, and particularly with collectively, that again, we launched in 2019 to be a resource for those that seek to find, fund, and partner with Black social change organizations in Greater Baltimore in from an asset-based framework. So often the nonprofit social service sector comes from a sort of deficit-based um, framework. And we wanted to start with a piece that I wrote called What's in Your Hand? Like, what's all the assets that we already have? So we know that we have a community that's filled with Black genius. We have art, we have talent and intellect. And so we began really mobilizing the resources that we do have in our hand. We know in the philanthropic sector that Black-led organizations only receive about 2% of the $60 billion in philanthropic dollars. But we also like build off of this framework of Black folks have always mobilized resources from the Free African Society to the Black Church, through SUSUs. We went through the month of February, sort of laying out the history of the African origins of collectivity and all of the ways we have mobilized resources. So I think we are our best asset. And so that's where we're starting. We're starting with mobilizing the community and then mobilizing our dollars.
Sorry, didn't realize on mute. I think that's such a genius, perspective, but I feel like it takes a lot of growth to get not only there on your behalf, but also people to understand that we are our biggest asset, especially when we've been so oppressed for so long. How are you able to incorporate, going back to what you said, the intersectionality of faith and business, et cetera, in order to get across to these people the work that you're doing and why the work is important?
Well, I mean, I think from the faith standpoint, there's a long tradition of pulling the resources together. So even as we sometimes critique the Black church, I don't know of any other institution that has stood the test of time and that still today is mobilizing resources, is feeding the community, is building housing projects. I'm on the board of the Black Church Food Security Network with Heber Brown. So again, launched in 2015 in response to the murder of Freddie Gray, and has taken off throughout the country. And again, using the Black church as this asset, as a point of contact where he is connecting Black farmers with Black churches and creating this pipeline to support community. And so I think for me, faith is at the center of it. And I think there's a long history and tradition within our community of the Black church sort of being the cornerstone. Collectively, it's not necessarily a faith-rooted organization, but we are definitely pulling from that same playbook, the organizing and mobilizing of resources. I'm just doing what I learned early on within the Black church community.
Awesome. And this fires me up and gets me so excited because you don't hear conversations like this every day. So in a time like this, in a pandemic, we've seen how incredibly important resources truly are. Can you talk about some of the conversations that you're having, in particular with Collectively, in terms of helping people, I guess, again, work together and pull together during a pandemic?
Sure. Like we knew when COVID hit, I think in Baltimore, about 67% don't lack any real assets that couldn't last beyond sort of 3 months minus of a paycheck. And so we said we didn't need any more data. We knew that we had to get to work. And so we created a crowdfunding campaign with the goal of just providing $5,500 micro grants to Black-led organizations, really looking at mission-driven organizations. We knew that their programming would get interrupted. But we're able to surpass that and able to do over $200,000 in the community, no strings attached grants, ranging from $500 to $10,000 grants to the Black community. And so we know that this history in this country and in Baltimore of disinvestment and underdevelopment, we have not had the capital that we needed to start our business, the line of credit to keep us going. And so we knew we had to mobilize our community. And I'm hoping that this lasts, that we understand that we need each other, that these ideas of individualism do not serve us well, that it's going to take a collective to sort of mobilize the type of wealth we need to get out of this hole. Some of the data says it would take us 228 years to close the racial wealth gap, to get the money where white folks have today. And so these ideas of individualism alone will not save us. It's going to take a collective effort.
And I think it's so important that you talk about the hope for the future and the fact that right now we're all sort of in this mind of COVID and the pandemic, but hopefully this will pass. And so, how do you see collectively growing and uh, past the pandemic? And from my understanding, obviously I know collectively grew out of Baltimore, but um, have you all expanded? Are you all expanding further?
Have not expanded yet, but have been offered opportunities around the country in several cities. But really wanted to get it right. In Baltimore, it really is a place-based model, and it would mean being in relationship with communities that share the same values, but them owning it, right? Because I think no one knows their community better than them. So that's the goal. That if others want to replicate the model, we definitely want to help and support folks around the country to do the work. But yeah, the pandemic has actually brought a lot of attention. Of course, the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. A lot of folks during the summer were looking for Black-led organizations, and we happen to be positioned in a way. We launched collectively with our asset-based map directory of Black-led organizations, so you can find over 140 Black-led organizations based on the area focus or neighborhood. So when folks were looking locally to support Black-led organizations, we were able to be there. So we're excited. We're launching a new site, looking at other ways of mobilizing resources in the community. We have a giving circle that is growing, a diverse giving circle. So folks not just within our community that are also going on this learning journey with us. And it is a participatory model where that group will come together and decide how we disperse these resources.
I think that's so cool. Tell us a little bit more about the Giving Circle itself. And then I do want to get into a bit of a conversation about how we're able to get people outside of our community to support an effort such as collectively.
Yeah, we launched the Giving Circle as a pilot. Right now, still recruiting members. We have over about 60 members now, about $25,000 raised within the Giving Circle, and we just started our learning journey. So again, this is a diverse group. We're coming from different points of view, and so we want to go over the history of philanthropy, of nonprofits, the ways in which historically resources have been extracted, and what does it mean to heal. And then what does it mean, as Edgar Villanueva would say, use money as medicine? And so we're mobilizing resources. Again, we have a diverse group of folk who, some individuals are high net worth, who understand like the history of how they received their money and want to be a part of the solution and give back. And so it's not easy work. It's tough conversations, but we're up for the challenge and excited to grow it.
How do you convince a person that giving back is important?
Yeah, I think for me, I think a lot of folks give, like Black folks give more than any other community. So even the data shows, like uh, when you even look at that great wealth gap, that this 228-year gap, we are giving about, I think, about 25%. So we're giving much more than any other community. So I say, like Black folks, we give. Like sometimes we think we don't, and I think others, it's really just convincing that this is not charity. So we say solidarity, not charity. Like this is a relationship with one another. I participated in a conference years ago called Old Money, New Systems, and we did a gift exchange. And individuals of high net worth could not ask for money, but they could ask for something else in return. So they might say, Jamie, can I have an hour of your time? Or I could say, if you're in Baltimore, I have a room, you can stay at the house. Or like, so it was a gift exchange that was equal, but just individuals of high net worth could not ask for money. So it's just being, for me, the bedrock is relationships. I think often we skip relationships and we just want to get into movement. We just want to get into the task at hand. But I think you have to take the time to build relationships. So we've been intentional. I always said the first 2 years for collectively was about building relationships and building the trust that you need to really build movement.
Trust is such a key word, of course, with anything in the Black community. Tell us how you, without giving away all of the details, I guess, and secrets and tricks of the trade, tell us how you've been able to build that trust among the people. And again, particularly, I'd imagine the business directory being a really great way for businesses to appreciate you and trust you. But what about those who are looking to you as a resource? How have you been able to gain their trust as well?
Yeah, I think it's about transparency. So I think it's you have to be transparent, um, and also getting the resources out. And so we launched with this monthly micro grant. Every month, organizations can submit a 2 to 3 minute video, and the community at large vote. So we've had over 40,000 votes, and have given out probably now about 60,000 within that particular program in grants. So the no strings attached grant is disruptive in a philanthropic sector that often requires a ton of documents and paperwork. We say there's no strings attached. We say, we know that our community has often been pouring from an empty cup. They have been serving the community, and this is really our way of honoring them. So for me, I think by getting the grant out, we try to get it out in a timely manner once folks have won it, and getting those resources in community, I think, is part of the trust. So there's no strings attached. That was important, I think, of laying the groundwork of building the trust that we need.
I think that's so awesome. Of course, you as an entrepreneur probably know better than anyone how many hoops and loops and bounds people have to get to sometimes get financial resources. Going a little bit back to the notion of African Americans traditionally giving back, and the importance of building relationships, which of course I think is also very diasporic. How and you talked a little bit about this earlier, but how much of an influence is the people and the works and the practices of the continent of Africa within the work that you do collectively? And I guess I was looking at Black Theology Project, and I was seeing so many connections all up in there, but share with collectively in particular.
Yeah, extremely important. We again used the month of February to do some of this work, and we brought in first Dr. Caroline Hussein, who talked about the African origins of collectivity. It was important that, I guess, as some people sort of put collectively in this philanthropic space, we wanted to make sure that, I always say this is not new to us, but true to us. Like this is really built off the work of our ancestors and the ways in which they mobilize resources. Then we brought in Dr. Joanne Martin from the Great Blacks in Wax Museum, and she wrote a book on the Black self-helping traditions. And so she spent some time talking about the ways in which families, tribes, communities, and even up to the Black church and institutions have always sort of mobilized resources, right? So she said often, then when she was doing her work around social work, that the Black family had often been pathologized, and said that we had no traditions. And what her and her husband set out to do was show all the traditions in which we've had in sort of self-help and collective resource mobilization.
And so it sounds like so much of the work that you're doing is surrounding education as well. Where does that passion of not only and I guess one could say giving back is in teaching as well, but where does that passion for the educational piece come from?
Yeah, we launched sort of our collective conversations in February, and we'll continue them. Again, I always said the first 2 years was about relationship building. I think sometimes we start so fast with the ideological framework that we skip relationship building. And then I see people, battling frameworks as opposed to being in community and building relationships. So now it's really about the framework and how do we have these discussions to disrupt institutions that have not served us well. And so I know there's a ton of resources locally and nationally that we can tap into. Up next is Decolonizing Nonprofit Organizations with Renee Hatcher. So she'll talk about collective governance and making sure our values and morals are at the center of how we create our organization. So sometimes, we're going to business school, we're studying in nonprofits, and we're replicating the behaviors of folks who have extracted from the community. So it's important now that we begin to lay out, again, the ways in which we always have in ways that are in solidarity with community and that are not extractive from the community.
Guys, y'all need to tap into Jamye Wooten. I'm learning so much. My mind is blown, and I'm just so appreciative of it. Now's the time where you guys can go ahead and drop your comments, questions right on in the comments. Hey, Jewel, I'm so happy to see you tapping in. Jewel is one of our top fans, and of course, she's clapping it up because you're dropping all the gems. Thank you, Tony Wright, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Oh, look, Jewel said it exactly. Yes, thank you all so much again for tuning in. Portia says, charitable planning through your estate planning. Yes, for sure. And Portia and Byron, thank you, Byron, for tuning in as well. We're actually on an episode last week of The Chicken Box, which is our show that airs every Thursday at noon. And we were talking a lot about Black wealth, and which was, it was Black people versus Black wealth. We talked about estate planning and what good money and what is good money, is all money good money, things like that. So I really, really appreciate them tapping in as well today. And thank you all for tuning in. And again, share. Yes, to God be the glory. Thank you, Joel. So again, like I said, guys, now's the time. Go ahead and throw your questions and comments in, and we'll try to get to it before the end of the stream. So I love that people get to vote for the grantees. Is that also a part of the collective way of working in the in collectively, and tell us sort of about the voting process and how people submit their information in order to be selected and considered.
Absolutely. So right now there is applications are open. They open every month on the 2nd and go into the 16th, and then from the 17th to the 26th, voting takes place. We open it up to community. And I thought for me, it was really about this sort of democratizing grant making, a participatory model of showing, again, that the community knows, right? That often, again, in foundations, we have made professionals, experts that know more than the community, and then they sit on committees and decide what resources should flow to community. We wanted to disrupt that and say that the community knows best. And so all of our models, from the Giving Circle to the micro grant to the Solidarity Fund, are rooted in these sort of same democratic principles of participatory grant making. And so folks submit a 2 to 3 minute video, and then the community at large votes. And it's been great. And even a sister did a video about a month ago who didn't win, but she said, but I won. And so what we've seen is that the visibility, that even when your video may not win, that particular month, it was over 10,000 views to the site. And so people are watching the videos. So she got an international speaking engagement. She got a consultant gig here and a new client, right? So she was saying all the ways in which she still won. And so we see folks who are enrolling in folks' program, or individual donors who are just supporting programs that they didn't know exist before. So we know, again, I think there's a ton of great organizations in Baltimore. They often don't get the light that they deserve. And so that's what we're trying to do, make sure they get the light. Even as a micro grant is micro, we've seen what amazing works folks are doing, even with $1,000 micro grant. But even more than that, how they're building community and how their work is being amplified.
I don't need to ask this question, but I must. Do you realize how much of a difference you are making?
I'm honored. I mean, it's a great feeling to get the notes. When COVID hit, a lot of the grant processes were, you had to prove how you had maybe been financially injured. You lost the job. And we just said, we're not putting Black folks through this. We're not putting them through this process. And because we know the racial wealth gap, even when you look, we always look clean and we always look like we got it together. The reality is, it's some folks that may have some hard times. And so we didn't want to, put Black folks through that. And so we're excited, to get the notes and folks say, man, you don't know, I just got laid off, or this is assisting us with the program. Or now I was trying to see how I was going to pivot during COVID. Now I can do this virtual program. And so I'm just excited that the light is being shined on Black-led organizations. I'm hoping we can disrupt this industry and get more funding and support for organizations who are close to the ground, who know the community. We should be serving our community. We have the expertise, and often we just haven't had the capital and support that we need to do what we need to do.
And do you think that from this program, other Black-led organizations will, or other Black entrepreneurs will be inspired to start Black-led organizations? Because I think so much of the conversations we've been having is that people are afraid to start businesses because of the lack of resources.
Yeah, I would say, part of what we did with the directory was, particularly around social impact, was hopefully organizations can, or individuals can, begin to do their due diligence first, right? So often, you see a problem, a situation within a community, you want to start a new organization, but you may not know that there's 10 mentoring programs in the community, or you may not know what the need is. And I'm hoping that the directory and more exposure to Black-led organizations helps individuals begin to see, maybe I should be collaborating or partnering with existing organizations, or maybe there is a gap or a niche that I can fulfill.
And in terms of success stories or people who may have been able to have some of those connections that you talked about, can you share any today?
Sure, I'll start first with our success story. So we're excited that Calais Campbell, the NFL Man of the Year, invested $200,000 into Collectively in partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation. Always said that Calais could have checked the easy box and did the Y, the Boys and Girls Club, but to invest in a young startup Black-led organization like Collectively, we're truly grateful, which helps us again do greater work. He also, on top of that, did 3 additional grants of $10,000 a piece. We chose the organizations here in Baltimore, so we're excited about that continuing partnership and what that means. Even the trust building, right? Because that even helps validate our work as folks see major foundations support us, and major folks like Calais put their money kind of where their mouth is to support Black-led organizations. But on the ground, it's a ton of folks. Tadia family is one I always talk about. They were our first grantee, you would say, and I like to say partner. I don't consider them necessarily grantees, but our first partner that received a Michael grant. And we went out and did a video just to see what they had done with the grant. And again, there's no strings attached. We always say, look, if you got to pay your rent, you pay your rent. If you need to go to the spa, you go to the spa. Like, we're not policing what folks are doing with the money. But to see the amazing work that they are doing in community is inspiring. It's more than just, they do a community cleanup on Greenmount and North Avenue, but it's more than just a community cleanup, right? It's base building, it's relationship building, it's trust building. So even when the pandemic hit, they pivoted and they started bringing food to the community. So they were bringing groceries to the community. So it's those relationships that happen when, again, some folks might just see community cleanup and don't understand the base building and the relationship building work that they were doing. So I'm excited about, this is a young group. And so I feel good about like the future of Baltimore.
That is so exciting. Did y'all know that we were going to be inspired and feeling all optimistic after this conversation? I had a little feeling after researching all that Jamye Wooten has been doing and has been up to over the past few years. Thank you so much. I cannot believe we are almost at that 30-minute mark, but I really, really appreciate your time. Thanks to all those tuning in. Let me see if there's anyone else who has a question. Okay, Curtis Kojumara says, what about the position of sale representation? You want to weigh in on that at all?
I'm not sure
exactly. Can you break that down a little bit, Curtis, if you're still in exactly what you're referencing, and we'll try to get that answered for you in the next few minutes. But I think everybody for tuning in thus far. We really, really appreciate it. This has been an awesome conversation and so much to learn, but there's also so much to tap into with collectively. It seems like, how can other people tap in, follow you guys, keep in touch, and maybe even join the community?
Yeah, so definitely go to our website. Collectively, we'll be launching a new site where our organizations will have the ability to post all their events on the website. We'll also have a space where Black vendors can begin to sell on the website and try to, again, mobilize those resources within our ecosystem. So, and we launched Collective Sound. So I want to talk about that briefly. We have an artist in residency, Content Collective. Every month they've been curating content. So that look for that in the fall. But really excited about these Black artists that are doing tremendous work in documenting their story in the Black artist scene in Baltimore.
Well, that is definitely really, really important work again. So, guys, make sure you tap in. It looks like Curtis is saying, is clarifying, saying about representation. And again, I'm not positive exactly. Oh, okay. He's saying he's a retired goldsmith. And so, oh, I guess representation of different kinds of businesses within the directory, and of course, I guess grantees. Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we launched really focusing on social impact, mission driven organizations. We pivoted a little bit, excuse me, during COVID because we begin to look at Black businesses not just as places where goods and services are sold, but community anchors. So one of our first grants was to Terra Cafe. Like we know that Terrence is a hub, beyond selling great food. It's a community hub, and so we have restaurants. We granted. New Act Cinema, the movie theater in Pikesville, a ton of restaurants we've helped because we knew that during this time they would be suffering. So we support those. But yeah, we're open, and as we open up the new platform, we'll expand other categories again. But really mission driven. We want to make sure that we're supporting those who are supporting or on the front line and supporting our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
has been such a great conversation. Guys, the good news is this, again, will be here forever. So go ahead and share the stream. This is such an important conversation, and people should know about the work that's happening in serving our community. Also, though, you'll catch an article on this discussion in the We're Still Here edition, which comes out April 17th. It's our April 17th edition, actually comes out the 15th, but stay tuned for that and look out for an article breaking down collectively and what Jamie's been up to. And in the meantime, in between time, guys, you all know we are the Black Media Authority. So check out afro.com, subscribe, become a member, and get our legacy edition. And of course, be safe, wash your hands, mask up, and remember Black lives always matter. Take care.